Welcome back to Badger Canyon Motorsports. We've got an awesome episode today. Join us, shall you? I want to say before we get going, if you're new here, give us a thumbs up, give us a hit subscribe. We're going to be doing a lot more fun stuff, and go ahead and go over to Instagram and Facebook at Badger Canyon Motorsports and follow us over there, please. We're really trying to grow this brand, and I would love to hit at the very least 100 subscribers by the end of the year. That would be awesome, and I thank you in advance for going and subscribing. Let's get on to it. Alright, so I had a couple Motovox MBX-10 bikes that I bought a while ago, and on my personal channel before I started Badger Canyon Motorsports, I did a build on one of those with a 212 Predator, had torque converter and all that stuff. You should go check it out. I'll link it in the description below. So I had these bikes. They came originally with these 79cc engines on them. These are no good. You know, I mean, they're for smaller kids. They're no good for a mini bike like that where you want to really rip on it. So that's why we went ahead and put the Predators in them. So I've got two of these 79cc engines, and I'm sitting here thinking to myself, Self, what are you going to do with those 79cc engines? And then I saw my son pulling my niece around in her little red wagon. Lightning struck, and I decided to go ahead and pick up a couple wagons. So on today's episode, we're going to be building red wagon go-karts, kind of a hot rod style. So stay tuned while we get things going on this. It's going to be a fun build. So we're going to start with the wagon as the base, and I picked up these wheels and tire, or this wheel and tire from Go Power Sports about a month ago, because I was going to make a wheelie bar for the mini bike in the background there, which I'm still going to do. That's just a little bit down the road yet. But I got this, and I wasn't feeling it. And so when I saw my son pulling my niece around in her wagon and I decided to go this route, I figured these would be the best tires for this setup. They look similar to the original red wagon tires. Here's one of the stock ones compared to the one from Go Power Sports. So, you know, I mean, similar appearance. They're both white rimmed, but these are going to look pretty badass right in front of that there. Okay, so I ordered a bunch of parts from Go Power Sports. They're not sponsoring this video, and neither is the company that makes these wagons, hence the blue tape. So basically what we've got is 1-inch DOM 120 wall, so 1/8 of an inch thick, with a 5/8 inch bolt that is 4 inches long. These spindle holes are 1/2 inch. So bronze oil impregnated bushings fit perfectly in that guy, and boom, and you go ahead and pop that in just like that, and there's our steering. We'll have a tab coming off that will link to the steering column, to the pitman arm via Heim joints there. So now that we've got this, we can go ahead and mock up the front so that we can check our clearance for steering, and then we can determine our front axle width. Once we get our front axle width determined, that will determine our rear axle width, and then we can go ahead and get all that mocked up. Okay, so we're gonna go, come here, we're actually gonna go 2 1/4. So I've got this spindle held up so that it's being held up vertically, but this is going to be on a 10-degree camber, but we're just going to do this for now. Okay, so there's 2 1/4. Now, I don't know if you can see that through my arm. That's right at 11 inches. Okay, so we got 22 inches from the 22 inches wide, and we'll put them on a 10-degree camber at center line, at midpoint of the axle. So now we can, sorry, I'm pointing my finger at you a lot. Okay, so now we can measure up to the square tubing and cut our front axles out. Alright, so we got the front axles done. And yes, you heard me right, I said axles. No, we're not putting 2 axles on one cart. We're actually building 2 carts simultaneously, both the exact same. So I figure, you know, what the heck, why do one when you can do 2 for twice the price? Actually, it won't quite be twice the price, because we're doing everything twice at the same time. I figure it'll actually really only be about 50% more. The parts, yeah, you're doubling your cost on your parts, but your labor is decreased because you're doing it twice right now. So we cut out one front axle, we cut out the second one immediately following it. Anyway, so we're gonna get the spindle brackets welded on to the end of the axle. Now what I got to figure out here is where in relation I want this to the axle. You know, how far up or down. And so what I've got is I just took my combination square and set it, right now it's at 3/8 of an inch. Set it there and just use it to kind of scribe that line across there and then mock it up. And I think I want it just a little bit higher, so I think we're gonna go, I'm gonna try 5/8, maybe 1/2 an inch, maybe 3/4, and just kind of play around a little bit. This is the first one I've ever built like this, so I know at the very least we've got to have room up top for the tab, so the axle's got to be below the steering arm coming off the spindle. Because the steering column's coming in from the top, so we've got to have the pitman arm here to the linkage, so the axle's got to be on the lower half of the spindle arm. But we'll play around with it, we'll get it tacked up and see how she cuts. Done, the front axles. So these are them, 10-degree camber. So now we got to work on the spindles. So I did this one yesterday, just to kind of prototype, proof of concept, get all the measurements figured out, because I'm building these from scratch and I've never built these before, and so figuring out where the tire's going to sit in relation to the kingpin so that nothing hits, and when we put the steering arms on, that everything's going to clear. So I've got my measurements. So we've got these 5/8 inch, 4 inch long bolts. We're going to cut 3/4 of an inch off the ends. We've got our 3/4 inch, or sorry, 1 inch DOM tubing. We've got our pilot hole drilled. I've got the drill press set up so that we can, at a 10-degree angle, drill our holes to create pockets for the axle to slide in, like that one that I just did. So this is the second prototype that I did today, and so here's what you've got. You've got a 10-degree hole drilled out to 11/16, and then this sits right in that pocket, and we'll get clamped up in the jig and welded up. So I've got 2 more of these to do. Let's get them done and get these spindles done so we can start screwing with tires. We got our spindles done, and they say anyone can be a welder with a grinder. Well, we took the grinder to it just to smooth out the transition between the axle and the spindle itself. So that's what we ended up with. And here's what it looks like put together on the front axle with the tires on. Haha, fantastic. Movie magic! You can see we've got our 10-degree and our 10-degree, and that evens us out right back at 0. And the premise behind this is when you let off the steering wheel, it's going to want to come back to straight. Man, that looks awesome. Alright, let's get one of these with some frame rails on it. So we got one of our front axles. We've got some frame rails tacked up to it. We've got it clamped down on our jig table here. We've got everything square. I gotta get tape measures. Tape measure, okay. Like 11 3/16 between the rails. So we're gonna cut a few chunks of square that are gonna go in between it, kind of like a ladder bar. One about here, and one in the back for now, and that's gonna be the support for the wagon body. Alright, so what we've got on this wagon is these bottom 4 holes right here. This is where the pivot for the front steering is. So we're going to keep the front at the front. And because these are right here, fairly close together, I'm actually going to use these as the mounts for the brackets for the pedals. They'll be in the middle. The pedals obviously will stick out towards the sides, which will be a perfect place for you to put your feet form. So everything is already here and drilled, so that's what I'm going to use. So this first crossbar, I want right at this line. So what I've got is that I want 4 inches from the front of this axle to here. So then it's another, whatever I ended up figuring out, we're going to have the front of this bar 6 inches back from the front of the axle. So we've got it marked here on our rails. We'll just have to go ahead and move that up, get everything sandwiched down to the jig table, and weld it up. Okay, so we got that first bar tacked in. I'll flip it over, tack it in again. But just to give this thing some structural stability so I don't have the back ends of the rail flopping all over, I'll do, say, a foot in from the back. We'll tack another one in place just to keep everything squared up the way it should be. While we finish the front suspension and then work our way to the back. I ended up, well, let me get to the tub. Okay, so on these holes, these front ones are going to middle this front cross brace right here. So I went from the front edge of this, I went from the front edge of these holes to the very back, or to the very front of these holes, which is where I want that rear brace to intersect. So that's 28 3/4, so front side to here, to the front side to this one is 28 3/4. So when we put our holes through to bolt the body down, they'll end up right in the middle, which is where we want it to be. So let's go ahead and flip this thing over and take a look at it, put the body on. Heck yeah, not too dang shabby. Let's throw the wheels on it, see what it looks like, see how badass this thing's gonna look. 3, 2, 1. Fantastic. I was playing around with this last night. This is actually the original rear axle support. The axle would come right through here. This would bolt right here in the back. But I thought it looked really cool on its own, so I took the axle out of it. And I think that was going to be right in the way. But I'm thinking about incorporating this as a grill into the hot rod aspect of this build, or of these builds, I should say, because we're doing 2 of them. Okay, so I'm done for the night, and kind of here's where we're at. Now we've got the front end mocked up. We need to get the spindle arms and all that stuff so we can finish the steering, including the heim joints and the tie rods. The back, we're going to have to wait till my pieces come back from my machinist, because so these are the tires that we're using. They're 4-inch floater tires from Motorsports, but I need them to be keyed for 1-inch live axle, so I ended up getting some shaft couplers from the bigbearingstore.com. Shane's going to turn them down so that they fit inside here, and then we're just going to weld them in to make these live axle tires or wheels instead of floater wheels. The steering wheel adapter, disc brake, and engine plate are being cut out from my buddy Seth over at DM Targets right now. So we're going to wait until that comes back in, or those come in, to tackle the back end. Thank you for watching. I would appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button. I would really like to get to 100 subscribers by the end of the year. That would just be fantastic. Speaking of thumbs up there, hit like on it. Helps me get seen by more people. And always appreciate a comment down below. Thank you very much. Thank you for watching Fabricating Motorsports. We'll see you on the next video where we're really going to start tearing into this little red hot rod wagon. Thank you again. We'll see you on the next one.